All right, we are live. G'day everyone, and welcome to another edition of Maltswithmates. This is episode 30, Whisky with a King, and today I'm joined by Dr. Abbie Neilson of Cooper King Distillery in England. Abbie, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm very good, thank you. Very good. It's been a long, busy week, and it's been pretty hot in the distillery. So yeah, nice to be at Friday.
We do love Fridays, and as it's Friday, you've said earlier you're drinking something. What are you drinking today?
I'm drinking MB Roland dark fired bourbon today. So these guys,
Come on.
yeah. So MB Roland is where we source some of our bourbon casks from, and so we've got multiple casks from them. We've got rye, straight bourbon, dark fired bourbon. So yeah, I'm drinking the dark fired today.
Oh, fantastic. We look forward to hearing more about that if you want to tell us at any point in time. To anyone who's watching on Twitter and I think Facebook this time as well, if there are any questions that you have for Abbie, comments, they should hopefully pop up on screen and we should be able to talk about that. But Abbie Neilson, formerly biomedical science, and now you've kind of swung into the whiskey world in a big way. Can you tell us who Abbie Neilson is, and can you tell us what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I started out my career as a biomedical scientist. I had just completed my PhD at Leeds, and my partner Chris, who's also co-owner of Cooper King Distillery, he was an architect. And having done my PhD, I was pretty burnt out from it. It was really hard work. I realised that a year into it, that I actually didn't want to continue with the science. And I'd looked into various other different career paths. Distilling was one of them, to either go into kind of the brewing industry or the distilling industry. But I just hit a roadblock because everywhere I looked, you needed 5 years of experience or you needed a degree from Heriot Watt. And I just sort of ruled it out. So at the end of my PhD, sort of plopped at the end, and we decided that now would be a good time to go off and have an adventure. So we didn't have kids, we didn't have a mortgage at the time, so we thought, right, let's take ourselves out of the 9 to 5, let's leave the rat race and just kind of consider what we were going to do next together. We sort of knew we wanted to work together, but had no idea in what capacity. So we quit our jobs and bought one-way tickets to Australia. So off we trotted to Oz. We found ourselves in Tasmania, and we were fruit picking at the time, trying to earn some money. Just kind of backpacking, working the orchards. And then that's where our whiskey journey began, was in Tasmania.
That's fascinating. I mean, in Scotland, you've got, in England, you've got Scotland north, you've got Ireland to the west, and you went, no, none of this. We're going to go to the other side of the world.
Well,
that's where we're going to learn whiskey.
Yeah, it was completely accidental. It was never an intention to, the distillery was never kind of what we sought out to do. It was when we were in Tasmania that we learnt that Sullivan's Cove had just won world's best single malt. And this was huge news at the time, obviously, because usually it's Scotland or Japan, which, kind of fight for this. So the fact that Australia had won it was pretty awesome. Hit the news, and we investigated. So some friends of ours back home had a blog, Whisky blog. So we sort of went on a bit of a research mission for them to visit as many Tasmanian whiskey distilleries as we could, and kind of report back what was going on in the industry at the time. Because in England, nobody really knew what was going on, and who was doing what, and who the big big distilleries were. So we started out, we'd go from literally sort of living in the back of an estate car as backpackers to visit these distilleries, who some of them had thought we'd been flown in especially from England. to interview them, and we were like, no, that's not the case. Our cover was really quickly blown when they saw the clapped out old banger that we were living in. And it was, at the time, I loved whiskey, I enjoyed drinking it, but I knew nothing about how it was made or anything about the industry. So it was kind of a personal journey of discovery, having this amazing behind the scenes access to these really small up and coming distilleries, which are now pretty big names in the whiskey world. We hopped from one to the other, and we had more and more questions, and that is where the idea for our own distillery sprang out. As most good ideas happen, it was over a whiskey. We'd been to a couple of distilleries, and we thought, this is just amazing. We were totally blown away by the passion, the people, the place, the product, everything about Tasmanian whiskey was just awesome. And we thought, why is nobody doing this? Back in the UK, obviously there's some amazing distilleries, but at the time, all I knew of sort of the whiskey industry was big multi-million-pound Scotch distilleries, which were churning out quite a lot of product. So that was very, very different to, what we saw in Australia was very different to what I knew up to that point. And we thought, wow, if we could just bring a little bit of that Tasmanian ethos back to England, to Yorkshire, which is where I'm from, to start our own distillery, and we'll keep it super small, super craft, and see where we go. So that's how it came about, completely accidentally.
I mean, that's the best reason to start a distillery, is by accident. So I wonder, just a weird question, did your biomedical background help you when you were learning how to distill? Is that something that came into play? Did those sciences ever meet?
Well, it's because of my background that I was so into the idea of starting a distillery, kind of the science of it, the craft of it. For me, it was really about like digging into those kind of details, what that spirit is about, what's the influence of the cask, what about the fermentation times and the temperatures. There's all these questions which, on the face of it, whiskey seems like a very simple process, but once you start to dig into the science, it's incredibly complex. So that my kind of background in biomedical science has been hugely helpful, but not necessarily, I guess it's more on a broader term, that scientific mindset, always asking why and how can I change it, how can I influence it. Having that knowledge means we've got ultimate control over the spirit. If I want to send the spirit profile one way, I'm better equipped to do so. But I'm still learning. I don't have a lot of experience under my belt yet. So we've got whiskey that's coming up to 1 year old this month. I'll be tasting that in a couple of weeks. So yeah, I'm still learning. There's I don't think I'll ever stop learning. There's just so much to get your head around with whiskey. But that's part of the joy.
No, it is definitely part of the joy. And I understand that you brought something special back from Tasmania with you for your distillery.
Yes, quite possibly the biggest souvenir I have ever brought back from any of my travels. Yeah, that was a Tasmanian whiskey still. So because whiskey, where we learnt to make whiskey was Tasmania, we fell in love with the spirit. So by default, we fell in love with the still and the style of still which Tasmanian uses. It might be a little bit different now. There's probably a mixed bag of sort of shapes, but then most of the distilleries had a particular style of still, quite angular, very different to sort of the Scottish style of stills. So we had one custom made, had it sent over to Yorkshire, and now that's what we make our spirit on. So it's the only one of its kind outside of Australia and New Zealand, which is awesome. It's very strange to see it in the middle of rural Yorkshire.
I mean, I can't wait to actually be able to when all this is over and people can travel again, I can't wait to see it, to go, to point out and be like, that's a Tasmanian still, because I
Yeah.
know that shape, I know that style, because that's what I grew up with. So I'm so excited. It is the coolest souvenir I think I'd ever heard of. If anyone else, I don't think anyone can top that. And Gascoigne, or Gascony, I'm not actually sure how to pronounce this. Gascoigne Nick has just asked a question that was on my list. He's asking, is there any distillery in particular in Tassie that inspired you? And if so, was it? You know, is there anyone that you want to give a thanks to, or anyone you want to give a
Yeah,
shout out to?
definitely. So there was a couple of distilleries which stuck in our mind in particular. The very first distillery that we visited was Belgrove Distillery, run by Peter Bignell. So, I mean, I only have to say that, and you can see why we wanted to make whiskey.
Yeah.
Peter, for anyone who doesn't know him or know anything about him, is just an absolute legend. And it was his kind of innovation and his passion and his spirit that really got us into it. You know, this is a guy who converted an old washing machine or tumble dryer into a peat smoker, which is how he smoked his malt. He, you know, he built his own copper pot still. He fuels it using biodiesel, which he makes himself because he's a farmer turned whiskey distiller. So it was that I remember him saying, you know, kind of his setup process, and it was the fact that he didn't need millions of pounds to make really good spirit. You know, you just needed drive and a bit of creativity. So he was absolutely instrumental in the setting of the distillery. And we have a saying that, you know, kind of if we come up against a problem or something needs, you know, we need to mend something, and it looks like, you know, some really expensive options and we might just have to throw some money at it. We have a saying that let's just be Bignell about it. You know, can we make it ourselves? Can we do it ourselves? Can we, you know, think outside the box and not spend any money? And then the second distillery was Redlands. So Redlands has changed a little bit now, but at the time it was Redlands, and it was run by Dean Jackson, who is at another distillery now. Same age as us, also had sort of no industry background before he started. And again, it was just that really small craft nature that we just fell in love with. You know, everyone was just so passionate. So yeah, definitely those two distilleries.
No, fantastic. I mean, I remember I needed to research some of Peter Bignell's whiskey years ago. This would have been 6 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. And I called him on the phone and I asked at the end, what made you want to start a distillery, by the way? And he just said, oh, well, I had too much grain left over one season, so I just thought I'll distill it and make whiskey. And I was like, all right, that's the best thing in the world. That's amazing. I wish we
Yeah.
could all do that. But no, those are two fascinating distilleries to draw inspiration from and to enjoy. I guess moving from that, when you returned from Tasmania to Yorkshire and you were setting up this distillery, you've got a Tasmanian still. You've spoken about how you use smaller casks for your maturation. What was the reaction from the whiskey community and industry? Was this you're bloody insane, you're trying to bring Tasmanian whiskey to England, or did they encompass it? Were they excited? What was the general feel that was going about?
I don't think we received any negative, you know, kind of reaction to it at all. No, it was excitement and enthusiasm. It was, you know, it's something different. I think the fact that we hadn't looked to Scotland to just emulate what the Scots do, and it was more to kind of bring something different to English whiskey. Let's champion English whiskey. Let's be, you know, obviously we look to the Scots for that kind of tradition and the process, but bring our own bit of innovation to it. So the fact that we'd gone to Tasmania, we'd learned there, You know, we were taught by Bill Lark, the godfather of Tasmanian whiskey. All of those elements, I think people love. They love the story, and I think they love the fact that we had no background. So, you know, many people were rooting for us. I'm sure many people thought it'll never happen, it'll never take off, it'll be a terrible failure. But, you know, it hasn't. We've proved them wrong. And so, yeah, I think, you know, especially the feedback that we have received up to this point has been nothing but, you know, kind of really has been nothing but good. So I think the fact also that we quit our jobs, you know, it all started from an adventure. All of those things just make for a really good story. So.
No, it does. And there's definite excitement for Cooper King. I said earlier to you that I feel like there's not been this much excitement for an English distillery since Bimber, and English Whisky Society actually just commented and they said they're following the action. Go Abbie. And I think that's a big thing with everyone is we're so excited for Cooper King Distillery. We just want to know. So what, in the meantime, what can you tell us about Cooper King? Can you give us anything?
Oh, we are so busy at the moment. I mean, we've got many strings to our bow. You know, whiskey is just is one of those. It's a pretty big one, but it's just one. So, you know, we've also got the gin as well. That's winning multiple awards. We are quite focused on sustainability. That's a big drive for us. Obviously, you know, personally as well, because we've been to Australia, we've seen some really beautiful, amazing places, and we've seen a lot of damage to these places. So for us starting a business, it was really important that we had an environmental focus, and it was sort of a mission of ours to create premium spirit, but without that huge environmental price tag. And we've stuck by that. So we plant trees for every bottle of gin that we sell. We do refill scheme. We have plastic-free packaging from our online shop. We recycle our botanicals. We source our grain locally as well. So on the whiskey side of things, we have a heritage grain. So it's Maris Otter barley, and that is being grown. It's just been harvested last week, 7 miles from the distillery. So we're trying to keep everything as close to home as possible. So yeah, the sustainability side, we've been making hand sanitizer as well, obviously during the pandemic, so that's kept us pretty busy. We've got some fantastic collaborations. We're working with some Michelin starred chefs and some awesome restaurants locally. So yeah, we just don't stop at all.
No, definitely not. I'm glad you found the time to take this call, but I wouldn't be angry if you said you needed to go to sleep and just hung up. I mean, you just sound so incredibly busy all the time. And of course, I love something else behind Cooper King is you're kind of the go-to source if I ever need to know about an English distillery. Not only Cooper King, but any English distillery, I actually look at the map that you have. I love that you guys are all encompassing and that you're so excited about English whiskey. So following on to that, who else around England has got you excited?
Well, I mean, it has to be Bimber at the moment. I'm super excited for them. I think they are just ticking all the boxes. And yeah, you know, we've met them. They're really nice, really great guys. They've got a very similar ethos to us. So we are definitely watching their every move at the moment. And it's really good for us to see that kind of excitement around Bimber and the praise that they're receiving. That's really encouraging for us, obviously, because our whiskey's not going to be ready for a couple of years yet. Also, Spirit of Yorkshire, which is on the East Coast, obviously another Yorkshire distillery. So that's pretty close to home. We're really excited for these guys. And you know, it's changing so quickly on the English whiskey scene. That map, you know, we've done 2 versions. The first one sprung out because I read an article in GQ Mag or something, and it was like, oh my goodness, did you know there are 5 English whiskey distilleries? And I could count on one hand, you know, sort of 12 or 15. And I was like, that's just wrong. People need to know what's going on. You know, we need to shout about English whiskey. So that's why the map came about. So there was 15, and now there's many, many more. And already that edition is out of date because there's some more which have come forward. And I'm sure there'll be some in the pipeline who, well, we know that there are some in the pipeline who've been very secretive. So we don't know who they are or where they're based. We just know that they're making whiskey. So the, you know, English whiskey now and for the next, you know, 5 years is going to be an awesome, awesome place. Lots of mature whiskey coming onto the marketplace, and you know, we've got English Whiskey Festival, and I think just to see us all come together to promote that will be really fun. I'm excited.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, English whiskey is so exciting. And there was something else as well. So when we were tweeting about this and getting some advertisement up for it, you guys tweeted back, which is, I love that. You're doing most of my job for me. That was brilliant. You also mentioned the hashtag women in whiskey. And I wanted to ask, how did you feel about coming onto the whiskey scene? Did you feel welcome, or was it all still a bit of a boys' club? What's the general? Do you feel welcome in the scene?
I definitely feel welcome. Yes, but it was still a little bit of a boys' club at the time. You know, having been to whiskey festivals, it's fantastic to see a lot more female drinkers, but it still wasn't 50-50. And I know certainly not just as a female, but as a young female kind of entering into that industry, I don't feel that a lot of people took me seriously. You know, when I said that I was going to start start a whiskey distillery, some people laughed, some people shrugged, some people thought I was just making it up. And I'm sure a lot of people just didn't think it would happen. So there was, yeah, I think it was, for me, personally, you know, I want to champion women in whiskey. Women have been in whiskey for a very, very long time. And I know, you know, some people are kind of against talking about it and promoting it. But until there is 50-50, you know, male, female drinkers, until there is equal representation, you know, kind of from the industry, of females and women kind of having, you know, these conversations, being a part of that conversation kind of in front of other people. I think that's still really, really important. And it's not, you know, for me, it's just a case of showing other people who, you know, could be in my situation or dabbling with going into whiskey as a career, or just from a, you know, just from a drinker perspective, it's still a little bit of a boys' club. So I think the more we can bridge that gap and promote it and make it more accessible, the better. And certainly for me at the distillery, you know, we'll be hosting kind of, you know, introduction to whiskey just for women, just to kind of bridge that gap a little bit, and get more drinkers, more females drinking it, and younger people as well.
No, I can definitely agree with that. I mean, I think it's important for everyone in the whiskey industry to realize that there is a snobbery that comes with whiskey, and when we're at festivals, when we're at tastings, we really shouldn't have that snobbery, because it does tend to be focused towards younger people and also mainly women. And we got to understand, if we keep up that snobbery, no one else is going to want to come into whiskey, which means it's never going to grow. So, you know, the way, you know, the future is open. We really need to have new drinkers, but I mean, we're all super excited about it. So that should be fantastic future.
Just on the topic of, you know, kind of women in whiskey, I remember there was this, we were in New Zealand at the time, and we were in a whiskey bar, and it was two guys with their wives, and it was a classic situation which I've seen so many times. You know, the women are kind of asking questions, they've got a glass of wine, the men are drinking whiskey, and the women are asking these really fantastic questions, and like, oh, what about the cask, and why does that influence it, and what is how are you going to drink it, and all of these kind of, you know, questions, which I interpreted was like they're trying to get into it, they're interested, you know, and you know, oh, try it. You know, she took a sip and she was like, oh, you know, that's so strong. Oh, that's a bit much for me. And his response was, what? It's not for you. I told you it's not for you. And that's just an instant block, you know. And I was like, I just wanted to walk up to the table and be like, well, just try it with a little bit of try it with some water. Come to the bar with me. Look, we'll talk you through it. You know, just because you don't like this whiskey, that doesn't mean you don't like any whiskey. And it was that instant, no, it's not for you. And that's what I hate. You know, I hate to see that. There's so many different whiskies. There's a whiskey for everybody. It's just having the patience and the understanding, and you know, none of that sort of snobbery that it's not for you.
No, I can only agree with that. I think you're completely right. Where there does seem to be there's a avenue, I guess, for men where it's, oh, you didn't like that whiskey, we'll try this one and this one and this one. But oh, if you're a woman, oh, you didn't like this Octomore 6.1, you know, that most heavily peated whiskey in the world, you won't like any whiskey. Doesn't matter that there's about 50,000 different whiskeys in the world. You won't like any of them because you didn't like that one whiskey. I think that is just, it's just a bit wrong. It's just a bit, you know, just treat everyone the same. And I think those questions are things that the industry needs to ask themselves. You know, do we have women? Do we have women at the top? Do we have enough female distillers? The English Whisky Society again has just said, what about the next generation of female distillers? And they put in brackets Sophie, Sophie is a fantastic young woman who works at your distillery, and you know, we're very keen to see what she does in the future, because I think that's a bright young mind. God, I sound like an old man when I say it like that. But she is.
But yeah,
you know,
that's a classic.
yeah.
You know, that's a classic example. You know, someone kind of younger who, again, similar to me, thought, you know, that kind of whiskey industry was impenetrable, and whiskey is Sophie is the most passionate person I have ever met. So the fact that she thought she would be 45 before she was even in this position. So Sophie is assistant distiller at Cooper King at the moment. The fact that, you know, we've been able to provide a kind of entry route for her without any formal experience or a degree, you know, is brilliant. So I've come into it from a different route. You know, I've found my own path just through kind of drive and passion. So I think it's, you know, important that we kind of extend that to the next generation.
No, I do think that's really important as well, you know, because you mentioned earlier, of course, that when working whiskey, when you initially were looking at it, you saw you needed all these. You need Harriet Watt, and you need IBD. You need everything behind you, all of the certificates. But traditionally, whiskey has been, you take on an apprentice, you teach them the trade, they learn through a practical series. I think that's a much better way of doing it. I say that, you know, trying to do an IBD at the moment, but I think it's much better to have that practical experience, because all the theory in the world isn't going to help you when you're in a distillery and something happens. I will just take a quick moment here, because we're talking about English whiskey. Again, the English Whisky Society is taking over this chat, but they just want to say, if you want to be the first to hear about the English Whisky Festival, sign up via @English Whisky Society channels. I'll leave this up for a little bit of time, so anyone who's watching can follow that, and they can hear all about more English whiskey. You're about to say something, and I interrupted. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say about the you know, the entry route, and yes, training on the job is the best way, but it's very difficult to, you know, find a way in to a lot of distilleries. So yeah, I think for us, I'm super proud that we've been able to kind of open up an avenue for another budding distiller who will one day make the world's best whiskey. I'm sure of it.
Well, we can, you know, if she keeps off the Jaeger, then I'm sure she will.
Yeah, that's her biggest challenge right now.
So By the way, it's fantastic that your distillery's back is still up and running. Um, I think moving away from Cooper King and focusing a bit more on Abbey as well, I wanted to ask, when was your whiskey moment? Because you've discussed that you are a drinker, you do love a whiskey. When was the moment you drank whiskey and thought, I love this? And what was the whiskey that did that for you?
Well, I've been drinking whiskey for a long time. My dad is a whiskey drinker. So I've been having whiskey with my dad since I was a teenager. But I have two extremely memorable moments of whiskey. The first was my first taste of single malt whiskey because my dad sort of drinks blends. And it was in Edinburgh at the time. I was with Chris, and we had just had a lovely meal, and we really wanted to try a whiskey, but in Scotland we had a shelf of about 50 different whiskies. So we just said to the barman, can you recommend something? What's your favourite? We want to try it. And it was a Lagavulin. So obviously quite peated, and that was my first taste of a peated whiskey, and wow, it was awesome. So that was pretty memorable, and that was what started us kind of on that journey of discovery. Like, wow, I had no idea whiskey could be this far out. And then my most memorable, my happiest memory of whiskey was during the tour of all the Tasmanian distilleries. Our treat for kind of doing all this blog research was a bottle from one of the distilleries of our choosing. So that was our kind of payment for the research. So we chose a bottle of Overeem, and it was Overeem port cask, non-cask strength, so it was like 43-46%, and we sat in the back of the estate car. Obviously we had no money at the time, and this was a real treat, and I spent more time sniffing this whiskey than I did drinking it, because the nose on that is just sensational. So yeah, that was my kind of, and I think that will always be my top whiskey moment.
No, that's fantastic. I had Jane on the broadcast a few months ago. Literally a week ago, I did a virtual tasting where I got to showcase showcase Australian whiskey to people in the UK and Ireland. Overeem port cask, the 43% was one of them. I've still got a sample because I got 2 packs. I've still got a sample in one of the many boxes of samples, which are definitely organized. But it is, oh my God, that whiskey is something else. I'm sorry. It it's just such a beautiful whiskey. I mean, it brings us on to something else. Do you still keep in touch with the guys back in Tasmania? Do you communicate with them a lot, or?
Yes, we do. Yeah, so we're still in touch with Dean, Dean Jackson, who was distiller at Redlands. Yeah, he's kind of our sort of informal mentor and connection to the Tassie industry. Peter Bignell actually visited the distillery when we just got up and running. We just launched the gin, and he was over on a bit of a holiday in London, and he got the train up to come and visit us. So that was super special to kind of show him, what he helped create, essentially. But we did have to put him to work because we had a lot of orders to fulfill. So we got him making boxes and packing gin. But we had a great time. And also Dean, hopefully he was supposed to come and visit this year, but because of COVID, plans have been on hold. But we hope to welcome him next year, because Dean actually helped put in some of the foundations for the distillery. So it wasn't built the last time he visited. So when he comes this time, we will be in full swing, and I'm so excited to show him, kind of what we've achieved so far. But yeah, we're still in touch, and we will one day go back to Tasmania with several bottles of our whiskey, and hopefully hand it to all the people in person who helped us achieve a dream, essentially. I can't wait for that day.
When that day comes, send me a message, because if I'm back in Australia, I will fly down, especially just to talk to all my mates who are distillers in Tasmania and be like, you've got to see these English guys. But I love that. I mean, speaking of people touring your distillery as well, I have to ask, is your distillery open for tours at the moment?
It will be from the middle of September. Yeah, so our shop is open currently, but the tours will begin again middle of September, and we run them every Saturday at 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. So it's a smaller group than before, so we're only taking 6 people at a time, so it'll be really intimate. And we talk everybody through how we make the gin, because that's pretty unique as well. We vacuum distill the gin, so that's cold distillation, which is quite different to traditional hot distillation. And the whiskey and the casks and everything, because we do everything on site. So we mash, ferment, distill, mature, and we will bottle on site. So you can see the casks as well. So
that's
and then
fantastic.
I was just going to say, you can book, if you do want to come for a tour, you can book on the website.
Well, there you go. If you would like to book a tour for Cooper King Distillery, you can book on the website. I would highly recommend it. You can see so much. You can see a Tasmanian still in Yorkshire. No one ever thought that would happen. I gotta ask, do people pay for the tours, or do you make them work for like half an hour or an hour, just like packaging stuff?
We don't. That's a really good idea. I should bring that in. Yeah, as an option. Yeah, payment or work, you choose. No, at the moment it's £10 per head. But in future, packing 10 boxes of gin and filling a few casks while you're at it would be great.
There you go, guys. You can tour a distillery, and you could get the chance to work in a distillery for free. Kind of, I guess. Yeah, I would love to see that as a benefit. My last question for you, before we head on to the serious stuff, and then the quiz and all that, I want to ask you, because you've traveled so far for whiskey to learn about it, if you could take a bottle of whiskey from anywhere in, just gonna say time and space, what bottle of whiskey would you love to have right now?
Oh, that is a tough question. I'd probably have to say, so is this something that I'm going to be drinking a lot of? Or is this something that am I drinking myself, or am I sharing it with a bunch of people?
Okay, yeah, we'll expand that.
Because that's key.
That is key. Let's
key,
assume
yeah.
you can share, because whiskey is for sharing. Whiskey is something you should share with people. So any bottle of whiskey from time and space, from all history, past and future, of all the world of whiskey, what would you take to share with yourself, with Chris, and with, let's say, 10 of your best mates?
Oh, that is really difficult. Well, there's several contenders, but probably the one which comes to mind the most would be Cavalan, Solist, sherry, because I can't remember which sherry it is, but it's just so sherried that it's barely even whiskey, and it's just one. You only need a tiny dram that could last you hours, because it's so potent and so loaded with flavor. That's a good sharing one, I think, unless my friends hate sherry cask, and then it would be a terrible one, which means it'd be more for me. So in fact, it's perfect.
I do love that, and I do know what you mean. That whiskey is super sherry. I am not very much of a sherry cask fan myself, so that one's not so much for me. But like, just a drop of that on the tongue, and that's the whiskey that you sit down with, and you've got to put on some music, I feel, for that, just to really experience.
Yeah. That one. My backup for those who are not big sherry fans, even though it does have some sherry in it, but it's pretty light, would be Nicker from the Barrel. That's a really, really good go-to all-rounder. Don't like whiskey, you're gonna like this one. So that would be a good one for a big group of friends.
See, everyone always says Nick from the barrel. I feel like I'm the one person on earth who does not like Nick from the barrel. That is one of my least favorite whiskies. Just,
Really?
yeah.
See,
I don't know
it's a
why.
good entry point for a lot of people who sort of aren't that into whiskey, because it's But yeah, well, you've got two. I've got two, and you don't like either of them, so you're not invited.
No, well, we're not best friends, Abbie. So, if we do get that way in the future, I'll slowly feed you more peated whiskey, and we'll just, hopefully one of those will be replaced. But no, for the people who are watching, comment and state which would be your favorite whiskey. Abbie, I did say past, present, and future. You could have chosen a bottle of your own whiskey from the future.
Oh, I missed the future bit. Yeah, well, obviously that's a given. It would be, yeah, Cooper King single malt. Cooper King single malt. That's going to be a thing. I can't get my head around that. I'm so excited. So long to wait.
I've got to ask. You said that you've got some casks that are almost a year old, and you'll be tasting them soon. Have you tasted? Are there any that you've tasted so far where you've just thought this cask is just for me?
Yeah, well, there's two actually. So we've got quite a few different casks in the warehouse at the moment. MB Roland, it's an ex MB Roland rye cask, which is working really well with our spirit. So our malt spirit is really fruity, really malty. It's quite unique. It's super, super easy drinking, really creamy, awesome mouthfeel, but just needs a little bit of spice. I think just a little bit of spice from the rye. So that's working really well. And we're going to do probably an American cask release. We're also going to do a French cask release. So we've got some casks which are fresh wine casks from Bordeaux. We've got some cognac and some Armagnac. And the fresh red wine casks are just adding a really nice kind of soft red fruit. Still really delicate. That cask actually is only 3 months old and it's already tasting pretty good. So I can't wait to taste that in another year or two. So yeah, I think rye is probably my favorite at the moment. But then we've also got some dark fired bourbon, which again is just bringing some awesome, really kind of charred, smoky notes, a little bit smoky bacon, maple syrup. That one's pretty full on and robust. So yeah, again, it's hard to choose. Probably the rye, I think, will be my favorite.
I mean, I kind of like that you're sticking towards the ex-bourbon, the rye casks, because there is a lot of cask experimentation in the world nowadays, and some of it seems to be just put it in there, just whack it in the barrel. But it's great to hear someone saying, I love the spice the rye gives, and that's why I'm doing it. That's nice and refreshing. That's a very honest look at whiskey as well, which is fantastic. As English Whiskey Society is saying, we can't wait.
Well, that's one of the benefits and the disadvantages of our size of production. We're really small. We're only at the moment filling 40 casks a year. So every cask has to be exceptional. There's no space to hide when your production is that small. So we are individually selecting those casks, which is brilliant because it means we can tailor all of those casks to the spirit that we want to release. So if we need a little bit of spice, we can add a rye. If we want a bit of, kind of fruit, we can take from the wine. There's a whole pool of casks that we can choose from. We're experimenting with some virgin wood as well, some virgin oak. So we've got a few quirky casks in there as well, which might be, kind of mixed results, but we'll see.
No, we're excited for all of them. And I guess it's an obligation when doing something like this and talking to a distillery that's not yet released anything. I'm obligated to ask, when do we think we'll see something? Could we ballpark it maybe?
Yeah, for us, I mean, we've always sort of said ballpark to be 4 to 5 years, and that's based on the fact that we are aging in 100-litre casks, so much smaller than kind of traditional 200, 250. So it'll be much faster maturation just because of the smaller cask, obviously based on the temperature. So we were saying 4 to 5 years before we had spirit. Now that we have spirit, I don't think it's going to need that long, because it's a lot softer than we had anticipated. So I think probably it's going to be 3 to 4. Because we've got the gin, we're not in any rush to release it on 3 years, not at all. It's ready when it's ready. So I think, erring on the side of caution, I'd probably say 4. That's what we're going for. If we get to release it a little bit sooner, great. If not, I mean, who knows? If we have summers like this, yeah, probably.
I mean, if we have summers like, if Yorkshire
hot.
becomes the next, if Yorkshire whiskey becomes the next Tasmanian whiskey of the world, that'd be something. That'd be weird for starters, but that'd be amazing. All right, the final serious question. Well, second to last, I should say. In what ways do you want to see the whiskey community supporting the industry at this time?
I think just keep talking about it, especially for the English side of things. I think the fact that the English Whisky Society exists is awesome. The fact that we have an English Whisky Festival, I kind of want the drinkers to own it and champion it. And it's new. We're all still working on it. We're still coming together. But if we can kind of foster that excitement and that energy and capitalize on that enthusiasm, then it's just going to create a really good network. Between ourselves, we can foster some good kind of networks. We can work together. We can help promote each other. And as long as we've got really good communication between the drinkers, the producers, and we have a really good, kind of fun, relaxed environment for everybody, we kind of dismantle that snobbery and the myths and just make it accessible for as many people as possible, then I think we'll be doing the right thing.
Oh, that's fantastic.
What Scotland will think of that, I don't know, but hopefully, what Scotland will think of that, English whiskey. But yeah, hopefully we'll be giving them a run for their money pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean that's a talking point. That's an hour-long talking point itself. But I do think that
that's what that is.
Look, what I've always thought is that if you assume that whiskey is this highway, if whiskey's a roundabout, it's a weird analogy. If whiskey's a roundabout, Scottish whiskey has gone so far in one direction, and it's reached heights that no one else can really reach in that direction. But if you've got 8 different roads you could go, or 16 or 32 or hundreds of different ways, Scotland just can't do that. And English whiskey has the space to be able to take multiple roads to explore new avenues. And Scotland is, as much as I love Scotch whiskey, it is kind of stuck on that trajectory. So, Scotch can do its own thing, but in the meantime, I am excited for English whiskey, for Welsh whiskey, for Belgian whiskey, for Dutch whiskey, for Australian whiskey, for Kiwi whiskey. These are the ones that excite me personally, and I think that's a bit of a common theme through the community, is that we want to see stuff from Cooper King. We'd rather take one release from Cooper King than a dozen from Scotland, because we know what they'll be. We have no idea what Cooper King's going to be, and that's exciting.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I can't wait till we've bottled that first cask. It's going to be monumental.
I I can't wait until you bottle it and then you say, we're not going to release it. It's too good. We're just going to drink it all ourselves.
Yeah, I was going to say, does
believe
this mean I have to share? That's rubbish. I'm not sharing. This is all for my personal collection. Did I not mention that?
Babe, you don't actually have to share if you don't want to. You might have to, but
Yeah, the
you don't
accountant
need.
might have something to say about that. Yeah, the whole debt thing. Yeah. Okay, we'll release some.
Just a little, just a smidgen.
Just a little, yeah.
I guess the final question there is there anything else that you would like to add?
Just keep talking about Cooper King. I think, let everybody know. Come for a visit. Please come and visit because, as you can probably tell, we're really excited about it. We love talking about the whiskey. We love getting new people into whiskey without any of the sort of snobbery. So yeah, I think just keep talking about it and keep drinking it.
I mean, I love that. I mean, whiskey is a thing that needs to be drunk and shared and visited and seen. Just trying to pull something up here so I can put that up. But Abbie is completely correct. The most important thing is that you continuously support whiskey by drinking it. And this has taken me a while to do, and I apologize. But you could. This is just going through on a laptop. I apologize. I don't have very good technology. You could head to cooperkingdistillery.co.uk/experiences to book yourself a tour for mid-September and actually see the distillery and view Cooper King Distillery in the heart of Yorkshire and get a taste and get a feel for what's going to happen. I highly recommend everyone does this. This is one of the most exciting distilleries that whiskey is talking about right now. By all means, you've got to.
And whilst the casks are maturing, if anybody wants to try the new make spirit, we have bottled that under our pilot series. So you can head to our shop. So just cooperkingdistillery.co.uk/shop and just search for new make malt spirit. And that is our malt spirit straight off the still that we've diluted down to 47%. So it's a good sipping strength. Really fantastic on its own or absolutely phenomenal in a cocktail. I am drinking it muddled with lime and a little bit of sugar syrup and it's delish. So give it a try. And that's made with, that's 100% Maris Otter, floor malted, super delicious.
I've heard of it. I apologize. I tried to put the link to the experiences and to the shop into the comments to put on the screen. But my system has flagged them and is not letting me do it for some reason. So I apologize for that. But definitely, everyone I've spoken to who has tried the new make spirit has just been so excited for it. They've raved about it. So you got to get on this. But that ends the serious part of this broadcast. Brings us on to the part that we always have, which is the question and anagram round. For those who don't know, this is literally 5 questions and 5 anagrams, all about whiskey. Because Abbie is here with us today, I've taken 5 questions and anagrams that surround English whiskey. And if you're playing at home, if you're watching, you can just play along. Put it in the comments if you think you know the answer, and I'll tell you yes or no. I have high hopes for Abbie. I think she is going to do brilliant. So, how are you feeling?
Nervous. Yeah, I'm nervous. Bring it on.
You're going to do great. All right. Your first question. Which London distillery closed in the first decade of the 20th century, marking an end of legal whiskey distillation for over a century?
Is this multiple choice?
I can make it multiple choice, I think.
Don't know. Pass.
I can make this multiple choice if you would like.
Yes, do.
Okay, was it the Liverpool Distillery? Was it the Lee Valley Distillery? Or was it the Bradford Distillery?
Liverpool or Lee Valley? Oh, I'm really testing my history now. Lee Valley? Yes.
Lee Valley is correct, yes. And English Whisky Society, yes, you did get this one correct as well. Yeah, Lee Valley closed in. I found conflicting numbers anywhere from 1904 to 1910. First decade of the 20th century, it was definitely closed, but that marked the end of legal distillation. And I have to say legal because I know there was definitely someone illegally distilling whiskey. I mean, we've got to don't do it unless you've got Abbie's skills. Don't illegally distill whiskey. Abbie's great. Drink her whiskey. Question number 2. What is the southernmost whiskey distillery in England?
Oh, southernmost. Could that be? Oh no, it's not Dartmoor. Do Hicks and Healy count? That's a brand. Are they still making it? Hicks.
Hicks and Healy do technically count, and the answer is Hicks and Healy. Yeah, Abbie is correct here. Hicks and Healy are not technically a distillery, but a partnership between, I believe it's St. Austell Brewery and Healy Cider Farm.
That's right. Yeah.
English Whisky Society has said released or producing, and I'm going to say to English Whisky Society, Hicks and Healy was the answer I was looking for. So that's 2 points to Abbie. Now this is another one that I've added a disclaimer to this. I've added a certain word. Who was the first dedicated English whiskey distillery built since the closure of Lee Valley?
So say that again. The first dedicated English distillery.
The first dedicated English whiskey distillery, as in a distillery built in England, dedicated to the distillation of whiskey.
The London Distilling Oh no, that would be the St. George's Distillery in Norfolk.
St. George's Distillery, the English Whisky Company in Norfolk, is correct. Founded in 2006. I believe Hicks and Healy may have been distilling before then, but they were not a dedicated distillery. Whereas St. George's, or at least at the time, Hicks and Healy were not dedicated. St. George's, the English Whisky Company, they have been dedicated. They've set out to do whiskey, hence the name. But you're doing bloody good. This is good.
Neilson stuff.
All right. At the 2020 World Whisky Awards, which distillery won the category for Best English Single Malt?
I don't know this. Which English distillery in the category? I should know this, and I don't.
There is a bonus point, or there's a point up for grabs if you can name the whiskey that won.
I'm going to take a punt and say Cotswolds Distillery. The whiskey. Ooh, I'm not sure. I don't know, but I'm going to take a punt on Cotswolds.
I also thought it was Cotswolds. Turns out it wasn't. Apparently, the English Whisky Company won with their Smoky Virgin in 2020. And I'm pretty sure that Cotswolds have won at least once, more likely 2 or 3 times, because I love what Cotswolds are doing, and I think everyone loves it. But apparently in 2020, the English Whisky Company won Best Single Malt in the English category. Now, should anyone have information outside that, because I looked on the website, I researched that and I was very confused. But unless there's been something, that was the English whiskey company with the Smoky Virgin.
That's great.
It is
awesome.
a very good whiskey. Yeah.
I haven't tried it. Yeah, I should get hold of some.
Weirdest thing is, I have at my partner's parents' house where we often stay. Her father has a bottle of Batch 1, the Smoky Virgin. And
Wow.
I don't want to open it because I looked at it and I thought, that label looks very different. I don't feel comfortable opening that because it's not my whiskey.
That's good whiskey etiquette right there.
It's if I see it and I know the price of it and I know that I can get it in a shop to replace it, I'll open it. But if I can't, I will not open it. I don't want to find out I just opened something that's ridiculous. Anyway.
You're a good man.
And now, you may get this. I'm hoping you do. Because I got this information off your website.
Okay. Brilliant.
As of April in 2020, how many whiskey distilleries were there through England?
I'm going to say, well, so are we going by how many are on the map?
We are going to go by how many are on the map. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to say 24? No. Yeah,
yes!
24.
24!
Excellent.
That's fantastic.
So that's how many that are on the map. There are two more that I know are producing whiskey that are not on the map. But they haven't revealed their names yet. And I don't know their names yet. But watch this space, because the map needs to be updated again. That's how.
Well, the map does need to be updated. I should firstly say that brings you up to 4 points. I've not done a points-based system. There's no ladder, but I like to tell people. You have, what is that? You've got 80% right. That's like a B. I don't know how grading works. I failed high school. But you were doing bloody well. So, keeping in touch of distilleries that have yet to release things in England, that brings us on to the anagram round. This anagram round is all about English distilleries, and your first anagram is Mary.
English whiskey's still to release?
These guys have not released a whiskey. This is an anagram of a English distillery that just opened, located near Eagles Cliff. They have stills named Boris and Doris.
Yarm.
Yarm is correct. Distillery. I believe Yarm is the newest English whiskey distillery, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. Yeah, I think they've only just filled their first cask, or a couple of casks. Yeah, in the last month or so, I think.
I love that. I think it's fantastic. Also, the names are still Boris and Doris. That's great. Does yours still have a name, by the way? Yes,
it does. And we've booked tradition, and it doesn't have a female name. I've named it after, in honor of my father. So Cooper King Distillery is named after Chris's great-great-grandfather, Charles Cooper King. So obviously that's sort of taken his sort of side of the family. I wanted to continue the Neilson legacy, which is my surname, and my dad has been sort of instrumental in the building of the distillery, you know, right from sort of the setup. So yeah, I've named the still Neilson in honor of my father. So, and we have one still that which does both the wash run and the spirit run.
I really like it. What was your father's first name, by the way?
Graham Neilson.
I mean, is there a chance that in the future we could see the Graham release from?
Oh,
from
undoubtedly. Yeah. I mean, nobody is more excited than my dad for this whiskey. So yeah, we'll definitely have to do a little special release just for him if he hasn't siphoned off, you know, all of the whiskey before that point.
Oh, does he get free tours?
Oh no, we see he has to work for his tour.
I really think that you've got to institute this work for your tour, work for your whiskey thing. You'll get so many extra
great
workers.
idea. I don't know why no one's ever thought of this. It's brilliant.
I mean, I think because it's I was gonna say it's kind of, is it charity or is it communism? I'm not sure. I like both of those things, so you know I'm all for it. By all means, communism is great, just not when Russians use it. Anyway, your next English distillery anagram is Teen Nosh.
Ooh. So, and this is whiskey distilleries which haven't yet released. So, future that are producing.
This is just an English whiskey distillery.
English whiskey distillery.
I don't believe they've released.
Ooh. Don't know. I'm not getting that one. I'm really pants at anagrams.
Okay. Where are these guys? I think these are. I think they're southwest of you.
No, it's not.
Someone's just said they're in Shropshire.
Shropshire. No, pass on that one. It's not coming.
Are you gonna play chicken on this anagram?
No,
are you gonna play chicken?
What's chicken?
Well, this is hen stone.
Oh, damn.
No. I mean, I realized when I started doing these, I don't actually know anything about English geography, so I can't really tell if they're north, south, east, or west.
So yeah, Henstone don't have any matured spirit yet, but they have released some of their new make, I think, and maybe some maturing new make, possibly. But yeah, I should have got that.
But I do vaguely know where this one is, and it's a whiskey that I get Wolfish to try. Yeah, I get Wolfish to try this one that's it's not mainland.
Isle of Wight.
Isle of Wight Distillery. I get Wolfish to try Isle of Wight Distillery.
Good anagram.
I am so proud of that anagram.
That's really good.
I'm not gonna lie, I've considered stopping this show and just selling distilleries whiskey names based off anagrams of their names. I think I can make a living out of that. Yeah.
That was good. That was tough. I would not have got that without the clue. That was a major giveaway.
It was, but at the same time, I feel like when I was telling you that you were chicken to not try that anagram, I feel like that was a really shit giveaway. So,
And I didn't get it.
well, I tell you what, this is an interesting one. At what distillery would you find a posher coupe?
I'm so distracted by the posher coupe. Okay. Ooh. I'm going through all the distilleries in my brain. Nothing sticking out.
Think East Coast.
Mm.
To anyone who's watching, if you think you know it,
East Coast. East Coast Yorkshire, we've got Spirit of Yorkshire, but that's not there. East Coast. It's not St. George's. Working down. No.
I mean,
Another clue?
the police quite like, this is where the police live.
Common English Whisky Society. What have you got? No.
Oh, English Whisky
No,
Society has nothing.
Come on. No.
They're in Southwold.
Oh, Copperhouse.
Copperhouse is correct. It's where
Adnams.
the policemen live.
Excellent. Good clues. Yep, so that's Adnams. That's the Copperhouse Distillery, which is the Adnams at Southwold. Nice. This is tough.
I mean, it's tough, but you're still. I mean, I think you've only gotten what two things wrong. You're doing bloody good. I think it also helps that you do know English whiskey quite well. So, your final anagram. At what distillery would you be most disappointed to find them pouring Coke?
I mean, look, if that's how you like to drink your whiskey, that's absolutely fine. No judgment. But pouring Coke. Cooper King Distillery?
Cooper King Distillery is correct.
Gotta get that
Cooper
one.
King Distillery is an anagram of pouring Coke. All right, now I think you're on the leaderboard for getting your own distillery, because normally that takes people at least a minute. There's only I think there's 2 people who've gotten it at that speed, and I think you're either second or third. I don't think you're first. You're second or third. So that is very good. Yes, Cooper King Distillery is an anagram of pouring Coke, and as Abbie says, drink whiskey the way you want to drink it. Drink it with Coke, drink it with water. I quite like whiskey with some grapefruit juice in the morning, but I have problems, so maybe don't do that.
Wow.
I tell you what,
interesting.
I have been on over the last couple of warm days we had. I was on the brandy and tonics for a few days, and then I switched to some whiskey and tonic, because that's actually quite a nice drink.
I've never had whiskey and tonic. I've had highballs, with soda, but I've never actually tried it with tonic.
I didn't try it with tonic, but the next
What type
warm
of whiskey?
day.
What type of whiskey was it?
Nothing peated.
Something light, peated.
No peated. Light, floral, think middle ground, so a bit of vanilla coming through. But I do enjoy that. But definitely next warm day we have, if it's 30 degrees plus, get yourself some brandy or cognac or Armagnac and a bottle of tonic. That is a really great drink. Cognac and tonic, brandy and tonic, Armagnac and tonic. Oh, that's fantastic.
Grand advice.
This is a whiskey broadcast. That is everything that we have. That wraps us up. I think you've told us more information about your distillery than anyone else we've had, and you have had more of an interesting journey than anyone else we've had. Yeah, what's just looking towards the future? A final question: what's next for Abbie?
Whoa, really good question. Well, for the most part, you know, I'm well, for the foreseeable future, I will be juggling distilling with, you know, running the business. So I have, you know, both hats on at all times. Handing some of the production over to, you know, kind of to Sophie. And yeah, I think as the business grows, I'll probably always still be, you know, running the production side of things. But I think as the business grows, we'll have a few more strings to our bow. We'd quite like to run more events at the distillery, have a dedicated event space, open up the tours more, host some festivals, you know, some English whiskey festivals. Yeah, so I think for us, the next 5 years will be exciting anyway as the whiskey comes online and we can start to really push that. Because we're not that active at the moment, you know, kind of the new make we're selling. And as you've already said, you know, kind of people are talking about us and are talking about the spirit. So I'm really excited to see that grow as the whiskey hits maturation. And then beyond that, who knows? I mean, it's you know, I really hope that, or I can see the distilleries coming together and we, you know, form a bit more of a you know, kind of a strong network that we can kind of push and promote and have some really good events in the pipeline. So for me personally, it's doing more of this. Absolutely. You know, and I hope to travel more. I want to take my whiskey to Australia. I want to take it to Tassie. I want to get it on the shelves there. I want to get, you know, some Tassie whiskey on our shelves. We've got a few, but just not enough. So, you know, I'd love to have a distillery where people can come and they can have access to some really interesting whiskies and some interesting stories. So I just hope to share it with more people.
Well, look, at the end of the day, as much as we love the taste of whiskey, so much of whiskey is built around the story. And you, Abbie, and you at Cooper King, you have one of the most fascinating stories in whiskey. So we thank you so much for sharing it with us here today. To everyone who's watching, make sure you visit cooperkingdistillery.co.uk-experiences or cooperking.co.distillery.co.uk-shop to book yourself a tour or get yourself some of their gin or get yourself some of their new make spirits. If you don't like it, tell me and you can send it to me. I'll drink it. I won't give you anything, but you can definitely send it to me. But
someone will drink it. It won't go to waste.
Oh yeah, it will get drunk. But Abbie, it's been amazing to have you on. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I guess the last thing that we have to say is cheers.
Cheers, and thank you for having me, and thank you for promoting English whiskey. Cheers to the future.
We will always promote Cooper King. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Cheers.